Hi, it's Jason with Akkio. Let's take a look at how to identify customer churn in your business. Now, I've already got my customer churn here, but let me show you how I got to that point. I'm going to click Create New Flow. I'm going to choose a data source where my data resides. Now, you see I pull from Snowflake, Salesforce, of course, HubSpot, so typical CRMs, Airtable. You can also pull from your RDBMS. If you have something like in MariaDB or Redshift or something like that, you can pull from there. Airtable as well. And then for other use cases as well, we also have GA4 here, and you can also pull from Google Sheets. Mine was just a CSV, so I chose table. And then if I go to my table, I already uploaded it, but it's customer-churn.csv, and it's right here. So if I choose that, now it asks me, what do you want to do with this data? Now describe what you're going to try to accomplish. In this case, I'm going to say I'm a sales leader. Something simple like that. Now, what we do is we take all the metadata about your data, as well as the data points, and we say, hey, what can we generate about this? What can we learn about this? We're going to generate you 5, 7 reports, depending on the type of data and the prompt that you give it. Now, I have 10,000 rows, and it took about 7 seconds, 10 seconds, something like that while I was talking to generate this. I'll click on it. Let's see the reports that it generated. So here we go. I said, just give me an idea of what I should be looking at. This is the exploratory phase. This is where I'm saying, I don't know the data really well. I'm not sure what might have caused them to attrit or to exit out is what this data set calls it. So in this case, credit score, whether they exit or not, doesn't have much to do with their credit score, very close. It's within 6 points there, something like that. It says what location they're in as far as what country they're in. This is a European data set. Here we go, histogram that shows the count of people and their age in my data set, not the ones that exited or not. So that's interesting. I might want to look at age and see if who left based on age. That looks good. Tenure, how long they were with the company and whether they exited or not. That looks pretty distributed as well. I'm not getting a lot of, this data set's not really telling me why people left. Customer X or not, their balance, whatever that column means, we have to look at that, has a direct impact on it. Let's go take a look at something. So if I like these reports, I'm going to save these and add them to a dashboard. Now I can share that dashboard, I can collaborate with it, and I can always create new as well. That's what we're going to do now. So if I go back to prepare, I do have a couple columns in here that I don't need. So row number, customer ID, I don't really need those. Surname, I'm not sure those would help. So I could come in here and manipulate this as well. I can do a lot with chat data prep. Remove row number, customer ID, and surname. Just remove them, just take them out. It doesn't hurt anything to leave them. Just an example of how chat data prep lets you manipulate your data very quickly and then get rid of things if you don't want. Now, if I did manipulate this in a way that I wanted to use it later, of course, Akkio has it, but I can also choose to download it up here. I also noticed a little bang here. It says this column has data that doesn't match. It's because it's a decimal and I chose integer by default. Let's change that to number. Very easy to do at the top. And then I can also see correlations between my data. So some of the things you could do in Excel or other tools, Akkio makes it ridiculously easy. I said in my reports over here, let me go take a look again. I said age was one. Let's see this one, balance. Let's take a look at balance here. What does balance have to do with anything else? So number of products. So balance has a direct correlation with number of products. The distribution, there's a lot of customers with a 0. Let's take a look at that. Whether they exit or not, we know that. That's what we saw in the chart. So that correlates there. Just a simple correlation. It's not non-deterministic, of course. Tenure has a negative impact. Geography, that sort of thing as well. So we should look at this a little bit more. We have the data the way we want. How do we explore this data more? Let's go to explore at the top here. So it says, what's the distribution of ages and the correlation between credit score and balance? Let's take a look at that one. That's interesting. Are there correlations between credit score and balance? It's a very weak correlation. So yeah, very, very weak. Closer to 1 is a high correlation. That's very far from 1.0. So I did say, again, if I go back to report, this is a great thing. I can jump back and forth. I said, I want to see balance and whether they exit or not. Something like that. In your own words, ask questions about your data, even if you ask it in a funny way like I do. So the average balance for customer exit is approximately 91,000, while the average balance for customer who did not exit is 72,000. Let's see if we can chart that. Let's see if there's anything that we can see from a visual standpoint. Probably something I'd also want to add to my dashboard as well. There we go. We already kind of saw this before, right? So we said chart that, and we said they did not exit. It's interesting though, the balance, the average balance, it's because there's more of them, right? There's more of them because there's it's an 80-20 split in this data set if we looked at that earlier. So that's pretty interesting. We may want to look at age as well. Ooh, did not exit. So those who exited a little bit older and those who didn't was a little bit younger. Let's see if we can chart that. There we go. Ooh, I like this chart a lot. So this is interesting. This is one I'm going to save to reports. Save it off to reports. I'll have it in I can add to a dashboard. I can share it with the rest of the team. I can make this available outside of people who can log in to the platform. So this is very useful. Interesting. Those who exited a little bit flatter. Those who did not, very much on kind of the younger side there, if I'm reading that correctly. So take it for what it's worth. Let me see if I share up here. I can see I can share this here. I want to share my chat history because I want to show the rest up there. And if I copy this or I open the link in another tab, they're going to see exactly what you see here. And remember, this is completely white labelable as well. So if you do want to share this maybe to your customers, you can have your logo on it and your chart, that sort of thing. So let's take a look at what we can do here. We want to actually take some action on this now. Now I would have saved those reports. My chat history is saved. Now you see that on the left hand side, so I can always go back to that. In this case, I don't want to forecast how many people are going to churn. I want to predict if somebody coming in or my current customers are going to churn, and I can actually use this data set to do it if we really wanted to. So let's go down here and say exited. I'm just going to use fastest mode in this case, and I'm going to hit create predictive model. Now remember, this is 10,000 rows, so this should take less than a minute, something like that. We handle data sets that are millions of rows, especially if you have them in Snowflake or something like that, in one of those big data stores. You're going to have a lot of data. Now, the common question that comes up at this point is more data better? Sometimes, yes. I would never say less data is better, but you usually don't need as much data as some people think. The data you have is the appropriate amount of data, right? That's kind of the rule of thumb. If you have some data, I worked with a data set today that had 7 rows. Now it had 109 columns because it was what's called a horizontal data set, but it only had 7 rows. So there's an interesting way of kind of looking at that. It only had 109 columns, 7 rows. That's only 700 and some cells completely in the whole data set. All right, so we're done. We want to do exited, yes, right? That's the outcome of interest. We're 86% accuracy. That's pretty good. Let's see what it looks like here. Now we do what's called a confusion matrix in a slightly different format. We show you the true positives and true negatives. So we've eliminated those who are unlikely to leave the company. Now we could work on the ones that are likely to leave the company, but there might be a low correlation. There might not be anything very common about them. That's kind of what this is telling us. So we could work on that a little bit. If we go down here, we can see advanced model details, which model was chosen, why it was chosen, that sort of thing. If you want to get into that, that's awesome. If I hide this is where we'll focus for just a second. Top fields. Here's the biggest things that impact whether somebody leaves the company or not. Number of products. When number of products is 3, they have a high likelihood, a plus 13% of leaving the company. 2, negative 10%. That's interesting. I don't know where this data set actually comes from. I'm not sure why that makes sense, but once they get to 3 products, they have a tendency to jump. Is that all the products we offer? Have they bought everything that we offer? That might be the case, but when they're at 2, it has a negative correlation. When they have 1 or 4, well, obviously we have at least 4 products. If they have 1 or 4, it has a slightly more increased chance of them leaving, but not really. Then we know age. We've already kind of looked at that one. I just have this data set for just a couple days, so I don't know it that well. But when age is 46 to 92, they're highly likely to leave. And then in the middle, not with basically under 40 is what it looks like here, is likely to not leave. And then balance, we kind of looked at this as well. So when balance is in between these kind of ranges, this is the correlation. It goes from their impact in percentage here. So +4, -3, or +1. And so you kind of judge what's here. So we also group this for you. We have top factors in there as well, but we also segment. So if we look at our segments here, likely to leave. What makes up somebody who's likely to leave? We already explored this a little bit. Number of products is 4. They're in Germany. I didn't catch that before. I guess I could use, I could map that out as well. Active member, they're not an active member, and they're female, has a high impact. So 59% over 45, which is the base rate or the base average. Let's look at unlikely. So unlikely male. So whatever we're selling appeals to males in that age group that we kind of talked about before. They have 2 products and they're balanced and they're in Spain. That's interesting. So this is stuff that's useful to you as a sales manager to say, hey, or product owner in the marketing team, that sort of thing, to say, hey, this is the type of user that's our ideal customer profile. This is why they churn. So in a few minutes, we took a look at not only explored the data, learned a lot about it automatically with our generative BI reports, but then we went in and explored a little bit and generated some reports that we thought were useful. Then we did a prediction. I think we've got some more information here. I'd probably want to go back to explore and generate some more reports that I could have live. They'll update. I can share those with others. I can also share this insights report here too. If I expand that, I can go back and share that here, and this would be completely white labeled as well. So if you want to share this, completely white labeled, and you can share that with your constituents. But let's deploy it. Let me go back and I'll deploy it. So if we go back here, we hit deploy. Now I have a bunch of options of where to deploy it. I can deploy via the API, the web app. Of course, I can deploy it back into the data source that it came from. So in this case, Google BigQuery, Postgres, I pulled it from a CSV, so I'm not going to. But in this case, let's do a web app. I'll select all the fields and we can deploy this guy. I'll go to the live app, and what this allows us to do is it's going to look manual here, where I can actually type in a user and say, hey, here are the attributes of Jason. How likely is this customer ready to leave? But I don't need to do this. What I'm going to do is take my current customers. I'm going to have them in a table, or in my case, I'd probably do a CSV. I'm just going to drag it onto this page. It's going to download back to me, and it's going to tell me their likelihood to exit or not, and their percentage likelihood on each side. The way that's useful is you would point this right back to your data store at your existing customer database, and we'll just fill in that column for you. We'll actually create the column for you as well. So that's soup to nuts. That's how we got from a CSV that we said, here's our churn data for the past however many months or however many years, that we explored the data a little bit. We saw some insights. We know our age. We know their credit score doesn't have an impact. We know it does have an impact. We've actually got a predictive model. Now we can go out to any customer that comes in, any new customer, 30 days after they're a customer, let's say, we can run them back through and say, how likely are they to attrit? And then we can start to do things about them. Looks like we need to sell them 2 products. No more. Stick with 2 products. Find the 2 products that are the most valuable to them. Leave them there. And that's going to make them remain a customer. Hopefully this is useful. If you need any help, always reach out to support. It's in the bottom right-hand side of all of the pages within Akkio. Have fun.